forward, please, so that we're not all scattered all over the place. I'm thinking maybe people, we had like about 25 RSVPs, but I'm thinking, did people think it was an open house and they're just going to stroll in whenever they want? Well, if they do, they're just going to miss all the good stuff, but that's okay. So let's all just take a seat. Charles, you tell me when we're ready to start, okay? Oh, we're starting. Okay, so we are live streaming this, just so you know, so the people that wanted to watch it that are on the mainland can tune into it later and not have to stay up so late, I guess. So I think everybody here knows me, but I'm Rita Andriello Feren, Patrick's wife and co-spiritual director. And I am very excited about his book, finally. I know he's been talking about it for how many years now, but every Sunday we'd get up and go, the book I'm writing, well, it's finally done. So I just have a couple of announcements, just real quick, to let you know that tomorrow night we're having our first spiritual cinema here. It will be What is New Thought, which is a documentary about the New Thought movement, starting back way back when. It's very, very informational, very good, very well done. And you'll know everything you need to know about New Thought, which is the philosophy that we follow. And then Saturday is a very special day because at 10 a.m. we're going to be celebrating the life of Rob Jones, who passed away and made his transition in May. And the event will be right here at the center, 10 a.m., followed by a potluck lunch. And there'll be music and lots of good things to celebrate our beautiful Rob. And let's see, the books are on sale. If you don't have a book or you want to buy one from somebody else, we finally got them in today. And so Patrick's book is here or available on Amazon. And we've got lots of great things coming up in November. So check the calendar back there. And I think we're even going to add more stuff to it. Because people keep wanting to do things here. I think that's great, right? It's a great space. So I just want to start by doing a little centering. I know you're all anxious to hear from Patrick. But we'll keep you waiting for a minute. So let's just take a deep breath. This is a momentous night. It is a night where that beautiful, amazing, healing presence of spirit, of life force, of love is right here where we are in each and every one of us. And what I know about tonight is that this precious book that has come from the heart of a man who has experienced much in his life is a beacon of light to all of us. And I know tonight, as we celebrate the publishing of this book, that we each receive a special gift and give a special gift too, and that any questions we have are here, nothing goes unanswered. This is an open, transparent, beautifully audacious and bold night, and filled with love and light. So I am grateful to know that, and grateful to be here, and grateful to just witness it, and grateful for all the beautiful manifestations that take place tonight. So I just, with that gratitude, just release my word and know that it is done, and so it is. So it is. So what I wanted to start with is, before we introduce Patrick, is that I was his editor, and it was a harrowing task at times for me, because well, let me read you my afterword. My afterword, is that what it's called? Sue Buckley, the proofreader over there, afterword. So at the publishing of this book, Patrick Feren and I have been together in an intimate relationship for over 25 years. We have been married for 22 of those years. I know as much about him as any person can know about someone else. We have been through many ups and downs during our years together. We have both struggled to survive and triumphed in many areas of our life, individually and collectively. We have experienced a deep spiritual journey together. We have created amazing creative projects together. We have founded a great spiritual entity here on the island of Kauai, and we have overcome many obstacles to bring it to life. We have loved each other deeply, and we are best friends. I had to put it on here so I could read it. I have spent the past 2 years editing this memoir side by side with Patrick. It has been both rewarding and harrowing experience. I did not know many of these stories in the depth and rawness in which they have been explained here. Through this editing process, I have come to have an even deeper respect for the man I call my husband. As you have read this book, realize that you have entered into the inner soul of a person who has traveled into the deep pit of horror and despair and yet has come out the other side as a compassionate and loving human being. This is because he walks his talk and constantly puts into practice what he writes about in his book. He is a great teacher. He is a rescuer of the little child in each of us. His technique of rescuing through the reframing, renaming, and reclaiming process includes taking us back again and again to that little part of ourselves until she knows safety and full integration. It's not enough to face a trauma once and think it's healed. It's an ongoing process that can never be ignored. If we are willing to take that journey, Patrick is there for us, just as he was there for himself. As his partner and wife, I am more loved and accepted than I have ever been in a relationship. When we got married on July 1st, 2001, we pledged to each other we would always change. He has supported the changes that have taken place within me with his whole heart. I do the same for him. I can testify that this book has changed him yet again. His openness and honesty has catapulted him to another level of deepness in his own ability to love himself, to love me, and to love others. I am so grateful for the opportunity to be part of this new journey of unfoldment of the man called Patrick Feren. I know this book will assist so many who read it, but only if they are willing to explore its content in relationship to themselves with perseverance and self-love. So that's what I have to say, and as I said on our interview with Tracy yesterday, or Wednesday, I guess it was Wednesday, that was yesterday. God, what's going on with time? That Patrick's done the work, and sometimes we think like we can't get through something, but it's what our whole philosophy is about. There's a healing power within us that when we turn to it, it turns to us, and I think as you read Patrick's book, you'll realize that's really is the truth. And then he took the journey and did the work to heal himself, because that's where it all comes from, within ourselves, right? So without further ado, I will introduce Patrick Feren, the little man.
Well. Tonight I said it's going to be an intimate evening, and indeed it is. Because what we ask, this will be a rare moment for me. Wow, just to kind of sit. I feel like we've been launching this not only for a long time, but all month. So I feel like people that were here on Sunday probably go, didn't we already launch that? You're constantly talking about it. But tonight, and I'm constantly talking about it not to sell it, which is interesting. I'm not trying to sell a book. I am just trying to explore more of where we can take ourselves. And I feel like this book has, I started reading it again because I wanted to read it from a place like somebody who's purchasing it and then sitting down with it. And not only do I have incredible compassion for this little boy, for this Patrick, this has made me even more compassionate for our world. Because all of the people out there that are fighting and conflict, I think they're in this book too. Because we don't know someone's past and someone's stuff before someone shares it. So tonight was an important night for me because I thought, excuse me, I just want to be, and how the evening is going to go is I'm going to read just a couple of parts of this book, and then I thought we would after I read something, we can kind of open it up for questions about that. But then some people have already purchased it and read it. I just think that this is so funny to me. The response that people have about this and no response that people have about it. And it has opened up even more curiosity for me, because it's nothing better than walking up to somebody and going, "How you doing?" And they go, "Fine." "Oh, you've read the book?" Because there's a feeling, it's almost like, you'll explain it later to me, because I know some of you have read it, and it is amazing to me to watch. Or like Luis, I haven't seen him since I've seen him, but we haven't talked about this, and he says, what I love to hear in a review, hell of a book. Yeah, hell of a book. So I want to let you know just a little bit about why I actually did decide to do this. And I thought the best way to do it was to read the intro or just a few excerpts from it. And at the top of can you hear me? Yeah. At the top of each chapter, I put a quote that I think goes with it. So for the introduction, it says, "There are scared children still left inside, existing beneath our skin, that deserve to be held, to be given something to hold on to." And that would be us. It's Kalina Madruga. As a child, my family taught me that we do not air our dirty laundry, and let me start again. It's just I'm trying to get the light. As a child, my family taught me that we do not launder our private life in front of others. But I am 65 years old, and I am putting away those childish things. I am ready to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth about the mental illness cover-up called my childhood. My inner child demands this of me. What is an inner child? What is my inner child? My inner child is a place of pure, untouched potential. I have spent a lifetime getting to know and embracing this inner child. I have listened to his unique voice, and he has a story to tell. He wants to let you, the reader, know that he navigated through fear, pain, danger, and emotional terror to become not just a survivor, but a thriver, a loving, highly functional, and successful human being. I have shared some of my darkest stories of growing up with my wife, friends, families, colleagues, spiritual mentors, therapists, and even included them in my public talks and workshops. After I revealed the frightening experiences of my youth, there is always a similar thread of questions that some most commonly ask. Now, interesting, 2 years ago, I interject here, 2 years ago, over at the other place, we had a reading similar to this, but the book wasn't done, and it was called The Tale of Two Fathers. And so these were the questions that's helped me navigate a lot of the book. They said, how could your mother stay with your father? As a veteran of 2 wars, why didn't your father get the help he needed? Did you ever tell a grown-up outside of your family what was going on? How did you turn out so well-adjusted after living these circumstances? How did you deal with the constant fear of being hurt or even killed? Are you afraid that you inherited schizophrenia from your father? Do you consider yourself to have been abused? I took all of those in 2 years ago as I navigated this book. And I went on to say, because I have finally dared to ask myself these same questions, the answers have been revealed through the writing of this book, and my healing has truly taken place on the deepest level. And so finally, why am I writing this book? My intention is to be totally honest, vulnerable, and transparent. By doing so, it is my hope that others who have suffered or are continuing to suffer the pain and shame of mental illness within themselves or someone in their lives will know they are not alone. I trust they will be inspired to come forward and get the help that they need to heal. The story appears to be focused on my father, the man I was raised by. But the truth is, everyone in my family is involved and is a participant. There are even times when I doubted my own sanity. This book is not just for the person affected directly by mental illness, but also for the friend, the therapist, the doctor, the veteran, the abused woman or man, or even the passerby who notices someone on the street or at any event that seems different to us or deeply disturbed. I have come to learn that mental illness appears in many forms and can be disguised in many ways. Do we all suffer from some form of mental illness? We cannot deny that many have experienced mental breakdowns throughout their lives. Welcome. Many times while writing this book, I have compared myself to others who seem to have had it worse than me. What makes this story so special? There is no measuring stick for abuse and dysfunction. The measuring stick is unique, and it is at the heart of the abused. Do I wish I never experienced this journey that I'm about to share with you? Of course. Do I wish I never experienced this journey I'm about to share with you? Of course. I would have liked to have been spared such terror and pain. Yet, since it cannot be erased from my history or my memory, what I know is that my strong inner child who speaks through these pages can serve as a GPS for others, guiding them from the darkness to the light. So please, do not get clouded in feeling sorry for me or looking to blame the adults that raised me. I did not reveal my story to get your sympathy or to point blame anywhere. My purpose is to highlight my victory and not my defeat. My purpose is to bring compassion, understanding to all involved so as to pave a road for a healing. I have researched, now you'll like this, I have researched the politically correct way to address mental illness for this book. The proper term is living with mental illness. The words never to be used are afflicted by mental illness or suffers from mental illness or is a victim of mental illness. So I apologize in advance if my words are not politically correct. You see, I feel I was afflicted by mental illness, suffered from mental illness, and was victimized by mental illness. However, although I lost a childhood through this war with mental illness, I gained a gift as well. I have never forgotten that I was victimized, but I also remember I chose not to be a victim. My prayer is that we will spend less time on how to use politically correct terms about mental illness and spend more time assisting those who suffer because of it. Fasten your seatbelts. It might be a bumpy ride. The good news is, not to spoil the ending, love always wins. Thank you in advance for sharing my journey with me. I was telling Rita, who has stood by me with lots of, as I said, it's amazing when you read some of your own words and you still have that emotional connection of almost, you're crying. I'm thinking, but I'm not crying because it's just, I'm feeling everything that's there. So a couple of thank yous too. Thank you to Charles and Jonathan who made this possible for the people on the mainland or people at home to see it. I also want to thank the wonderful Sue Buckley, who had her challenges knowing me for a long period of time, and we consider ourselves kind of brother and sister. And so as she proofread this, she had to go through what Rita did too. You know, that feeling of loving someone so much, and then you read something and you're like, wow. Yeah, so thank you, Rita. I call her my sculptor and my shaper, because she has always known. She's written before. Rita is one of the best writers that I personally know, and I knew this before we were even together. But she knows me so well that she wrote a one-man show for me too, by the way, and surprised me with them, because she knows that how I speak, and somebody said that the book is how I talk, a lot of it, but then we need sculptors and shapers to come in and say, yeah, you want to be criticized, you might want to just bend it over here and do it over here, and it's beautiful, so thank you. So with that intro, I would welcome Marion and Glenn, welcome everybody. This is, like I said, an intimate evening of, it's just the intro, but things that came up when I spoke in the intro come up that you wanted to have any comment, or you wanted to ask any kind of question or anything?
We have to use the mic, so I'm going back to Carla right now.
Carla?
We don't, hold on.
Hold on, because we have our, there you go.
We read it on our way over because it takes 45 minutes. There was a fire in Honolulu. But I read it out loud to us. It reads beautifully. It absolutely reads beautifully. It's so readable. If I didn't know you, which I do, and you are the product, that's the beauty of it. Look at you and all that you've been through, but look at you. I mean, you're a gift. You are a gift.
Mahalo. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Beth?
So I think it was difficult to read because, like, knowing you past couple of years and going, oh my gosh, look at what he had to deal with, and like, it was really amazing to see how far you've come. Like, had no idea, right? I mean, I had a little bit of an idea, but not really. No way. So can I ask some questions? I'm curious, like some of the dynamics.
Sure.
So I was wondering if there was a time in your healing that you got angry with your mother, not when she was older, but you know, when you were doing your processing, because it seemed to me, in my opinion, you kind of had her on a pedestal, you know, she was like your, kind of your angel mother, you know, and you were really close, but I'm thinking like, you know, at some point, it must have been hard to take her off. If you did, I don't know your process, but that was like one of those things, and then trying to understand, like, well, maybe she didn't leave because of kind of the religious or the time
Right.
and all that too. But the first question is actually more interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I, to be quite honest, and why wouldn't I be honest in person if you're honest in here? Yeah. I adored my mother, and I turned her into this this figure, like you said. I put her on a pedestal, but almost like, you know, and I think most of it was because I thought she was so victimized by my dad that she was the Holy Mother of God, you know. But then as I started to, there was different points, and I really want to really address that, because even though at the end I talk about some of the stuff about coming here and leaving her there, but there were times in my healing when I remember being in New York City, and my roommate at the time was like, wow, and I was probably 28, you know, so I was out, and I went, David, I'm having a problem right now. And he goes, what'd I go? I hate my mother. And even saying it, I thought that like the clouds were going to open up and the lightning was going to strike me. And it was a part of my process, because I was never allowed for my mother to go against her. And I don't mean that there was something to go against, but I mean never to really question it, saying, what's going on here? I'm running a home. I'm 7 years old. But I wasn't allowed because she was perfect. And he was the mean one, and he was this. And I always tell Rita, I probably put it in here. My father ran that household from the floor. Drunk and on the floor, he owned us. And that was a real psychological thing. But back to my mom, yeah, I had to go through the process of daring to not think that her choices were good. And that was a very frightening time for me, because even writing this, I was positive she was going to come back from the grave and say, what did you do? What did you do? So, yeah, there was some real connection. I had to take her down a little bit because to be honest with you, I overly adored her. That wasn't healthy. You can love your parents, and I still do, but you can go a little bit over that. And that's because, as I said in the book, I was my mother's husband and my father's wife. And that, to me, is one of the things, if I can sit here, and that's why I wanted it filmed, actually, because it gives me the courage to know that this is being broadcast. But it was not an easy job to be a husband and a wife and really realize that coping mechanism at 7, 8, 9, 10. So, yeah, thank you. Then I'll read another uplifting passage. I hope you guys are going, I came out for this. Yes.
Yeah, like I said, it's a hell of a book, Patrick. I started reading it yesterday, and I just kept reading. It was a hell of a story. I mean, it's very, very powerful, and the relationship you had with your brother as well. Not a good one. Not a good one. Now, I don't want to get into specific parts of the book, because I don't want to spoil it for others, you know. But was it your brother that died in a car accident, or who was it?
Yeah, he died at 42.
42.
It was hit by a car.
Right. I don't want to be too specific, but well, the part where in the bathroom your father held you up and stuck your head in the toilet, and your brother was laughing and flushing the toilet. I mean, that's pretty powerful. I said, holy shit, you know. I mean, Patrick, you went through quite a bit, you know.
Right.
But the other thing was when you found out at the age of 24 that your father was not your real father. Mm-hmm. You know, your mom told you and everything and all that. But you ever had any concern as to, was your real father, was he still alive? Or you ever thought about, you know, finding where he might be at or anything like that? Or?
Oh, book 2.
Oh.
No, so like I said, I don't hold anything back after this. Yes, I didn't put him in here because he wasn't the integral part, but I did find him, and I was told who he was, and I went to meet him. Mm-hmm. And this will probably answer it even the most beautiful. I was looking at the father I was raised at, like maybe I did better by the one I was raised with than the one I found. So it was like, strike 2! And so just to let you know that it's interesting, all my life, being a Catholic, I prayed to God every night on my knees. Please, God, give me another dad. Please, God, give me another dad. I know he can't be my dad. Please, God, give me another dad. Ta-da! So at 24, I did find him, went to see him, and it was disappointing. It was like I said, but here's the thing about that. Not that I was that involved at that age, but I'm saying that it did make me see that I had to find a father within me, because I did strike out twice of what I consider hitting the good father road, you know. And so I finally went, I'm going to stop praying for another daddy, and I'll become my own. So I went on that journey after that. Yeah.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
I won't go into the details. I'll let everyone experience it for themselves, because it was the first time I became aware of it when you were talking about your rebirthing experience.
Right.
I said, holy shit.
Yeah, I got somebody
now
today that called and said
that's
that
powerful.
that part was jaw dropping.
I mean, that,
you know?
I said,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I won't go into the details, but that was something. Thank you.
I would say I'm very, very excited about that one too. The rebirthing process that went very over to the other part of it. So much that when you read it, you'll understand it. But I took the rebirthing process, and you're supposed to, if anyone ever rebirthed, did that, you're supposed to have like a little drizzle in your mouth when you first start. And you're like kind of curling a little bit. I took it a bit further. I decided literally to birth myself. So that was quite an experience. And when I first told Rita was like, that part of it, she's like, because she used to hate that. You have no idea what it's like to have a baby. And I said, read page. So let me tell you, when you're metaphysical beings, there isn't much we cannot do when we're in our search for ourselves. Great. So I'm going to read another one that'll just be an uplifter. I mean, a real dance. I'm only laughing because and I just want to say one thing about my humor, because everyone in this room knows me. My humor was birthed not so much as a defense, even though people think those that are humorous are hiding stuff, and like the comics and everything. My humor was my savior, and as I put in the book, my humor is, I did it for my mother because I loved watching her laugh so hard, and I would be any clown in the world to get her to laugh, and that was why I chose that. And then I kept it, and then throughout life I had to become a little more authentic with humor. But then now I can't help it. Now I just can't help it. So this one I chose, and it's from the chapter called "And God Sacrificed His Only Son." Ooh. The reason I chose it is because it tells a little bit about the religious and the spiritual aspect that went on throughout this book. My mother never discussed religion at home with my father. Never discussed religion at home with my father. We did not pray at dinner because it just would have angered him. I believe his anger stemmed from his jealousy over my mother's relationship with Jesus and God. He didn't say he was jealous, but he acted that way. Maybe it was because she was so obviously peaceful with God and he was so tormented. I don't know the real answer, but it gives me some kind of understanding of his deep, seething anger and making fun of her all the time, ridiculing her and her love for Jesus, while at the same time screaming that she was a whore. Very confusing as a child, by the way. Jesus, whore. I am not sure how the infant Jesus survived my father's jealousy when many of her other spiritual treasures did not. For example, my mother had one of those plastic statues of Jesus on the dashboard of her car. She said it was for protection while she was traveling. My father used it as an ashtray. My mother held in her rage, but she kept that statue of Jesus with his burnt face for years. In our dining room, we had another big painting of Jesus at Gethsemane. Gethsemane was where Jesus spent his last night before his crucifixion. That painting was beautiful and gave me so much peace when I looked at it. However, peace was fleeting in our turbulent home, and the peace of that painting would fade into the chaos of one fateful night. I'm not sure what aggravated my father that particular night. His jealousy of my mother's relationship with Jesus was particularly acute. He was calling Jesus every filthy name he could come up with as my mother unsuccessfully tried to calm him down. Jesus would never love a whore like you, he screamed over and over. I was crying for him to stop. My mother pleaded with him in her favorite phrase, I beg of you, Don, stop, I beg of you, don't. I knew that was the night that was going to get very dark. Yes, it would be one of our run for your life nights. Why we didn't just leave right away, I do not know. I think we both felt that maybe we could turn him around. We stood frozen as he became more and more violent and out of control. Suddenly, he lunged toward the painting and putting his fist right through the glass as he punched Jesus over and over. Where is your Jesus now, Katie? He kept screaming over and over as his voice mingled with the sound of broken glass hitting the floor. My father was definitely gone, and all that remained was a madman filled with blood. I heard in religion, who was this man? Was he possessed like those stories I heard in religion class? He continued to taunt my mother as we stood in terror. There is no God to stop me now, Katie, he screamed. You might wonder at times like this why we didn't call the police. Oh, we did. But all we would get were questions to my mother like, what did you do to aggravate your husband? I think we finally gave up on getting that kind of help. It was easier just to run, which we always and eventually did. As we stood frozen in disbelief, my father ran into the kitchen and came out with a knife. The house was filled with a chorus of screams, his and ours. Was he coming for us? No, it was Jesus that he was after. Here, Katie, watch this, as he yelled and stabbed the picture of Jesus repeatedly. Where's your Jesus now, Katie? How is all that praying working for you now? He continued to stab the painting. That moment came and my mother said, grab your coats. She screamed. We were already out the door. Where do you think you're going? My father yelled with eyes wild and blood dripping from his hand. He waved the knife in rage. You aren't going anywhere, you little bitch. Get back off into the night, leaving that man I didn't recognize. Drove off. The car was deafening still. There were no words. Even my brother Danny had nothing to say. I can't remember where we fled to that night. Spend that night at Nana's? I don't remember. However, I do recall returning with that dreadful fear in my stomach. What would we find? Would he still be awake? Would he still be mad? Would the father I knew be gone and this person still be there? On this particular occasion, we found him passed out on the floor, surrounded by broken glass, furniture tipped over, and things tossed around. His hand was wrapped in a blood-soaked towel, the destroyed painting of Jesus still hanging on the wall. All I could think of was, my God, my father got away with stabbing Jesus. No lightning came to strike him. Where was God now? Did he even exist? Was Dad right? Or had the king sacrificed his only son once again? These were the questions in a young boy's mind, questions that rang with no answers. We started picking up things little by little from the crime scene and putting it back together again. My father finally woke up with that familiar look and response. What happened, Katie? I ignored him once again, and my mother took him into the bathroom and bandaged his hand. I could hear him apologizing. What happened? I'm so sorry, Katie, he kept repeating. My father was back, and the other person was tucked away for a moment, giving us enough time to take a breath before he would return to torture us all over again. My mother put him into bed, and then I watched her take the painting down. I assumed she got rid of it and the awful memory of that night. However, I wasn't aware at the time that her love for Jesus would never allow her to do that. I would find that out 30 years later. That's why you have to buy the book, because you got to go, what did he find out 30 years later? Thank you. For those of you who are just jumping in, the reason I say the other person and the other stuff is because he had so many diagnoses, but he had multiple personalities. So as I say in the book, I got to know them as they came out, and I knew which ones were dangerous and which ones were this and that. So when he would come back, I would recognize him as my... So I chose this to really make you feel even better sitting here. I chose this because to see where I'm sitting now compared to the little boy who was wondering, is there a God? Pardon me? How old? I was 10, probably a little younger, 8 or 9. Any questions?
I'll come back to you. My exercise.
Patrick, since your mom was obviously so much in love with Jesus and a good Catholic, did she never think of going to the church for refuge?
That's an easy question. No. She didn't go to the church because she didn't go to anybody, right? And the church would have been a good place for her to go. But her love for prayer and everything else was very private. She always felt that people that do like what I do on Sunday, that were just, you should keep that to yourself. Don't get so excited about stuff like that. So that I would say no, yeah, because remember, I went to Catholic school too, and it was a top secret. We could never let anyone know, which is a side note, when you go back and you find out that all your friends, half your friends were going through it as well. It felt very like, wow, I thought we were the only ones, but no, she would never have went to a priest. Diane?
The question had to do with you being in Catholic school at that time. Is that right, when that happened?
Oh, yeah.
So that must have been terribly conflicting, and you had nobody to talk to, I would imagine, at school.
No.
Yeah. Did it take a long time for you to come back around to know that there is a God?
I think for me, yeah, that's a great question, because even though I doubted what was going on when he was stabbing Jesus and doing all this stuff, I think I had to believe in God. I had to. What else would I have had if I did not believe in God? So I went back to that idea that I never knew about God, but I always knew that something had to be more than what I was witnessing. So that's why the Catholic helped me a little bit, because they had saints. I mean, you can go to a whole bunch of people to get to God, I'd be praying to St. Teresa was one of my favorites. And I was able to do that. So I'm not sure. I think on that night, and before he actually left the house years and years later, I balanced that, challenged that, because I thought, as anybody would, if there was a God, and we get that now, don't we? If there's a God, why would he allow this to happen, or that to happen, or this to happen? So I think that it was always a question there. Yeah. Thank you for being here tonight. This feels to be in a book and then not, and then come and then be sitting kind of where I'm sitting right now. It's a different feeling than I anticipated of having. It's vulnerable, but yet it's interesting. So thank you for being here to support this book too. Yeah, thank you. Peggy.
Growing up with a family and all the chaos, where did you learn to trust again? When did that happen? As a young adult?
Trust again?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's twofold. Took me lots of years as an adult to trust again. trust that about people, that would people, could this, and so, but I kept attracting it, by the way, people that were mimicking my father and my upbringing when I moved out. I was so addicted to hypervigilance of drama that I had to have it. It was almost like a fix. And it wasn't until I started to trust, that you're talking about, that I knew I could trust that it was okay to just be here. And that nobody was going to run through the door and bash through this and bash through that. But I also think, on another note, I had to trust a lot my own intuition as a little boy to how to get out of these situations and how to protect my mom and how to do that. So I had to trust me more than I knew I was trusting me. But yeah, it took me a little while to getting past the addiction of I was like, I'm free, there's nobody around, I have my own apartment. Oh, this is boring. What are we gonna do? Let's get some people in here to scare me. It was like interesting psychology. Thank you. I only have one more story to read, and then we're complete with my reading stuff.
Yet there was one part in the book, very briefly, in trying to understand your father's mental illness, because you mentioned about his post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar, alcoholism, went through a lot. The military, his failures there and everything and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But there was one moment I was thinking, wow, this is like a Stephen King horror movie. But in trying to understand your father's background, and they only mentioned it briefly that when he was a child, he was put in a cage and was tortured
And
or
poked
whatever.
out like a bird?
Yeah, but you can't add to that, but because that was the only thing you mentioned in regards to that.
Right. Yeah, he had a secret, he had his parents, this is what he would say too, that they would put him down in the basement and they would put him in a cage and you're an animal type thing. And whether or not, it's true, we don't know, right? Because it was long before I even got here. So, but I think he had a lot more, and I say that in the book that I'm not reading tonight. But one of the ways, and I could say a little bit of it, one of the ways that I could appease my father would be when he would yell, and I knew what he needed to hear because of his abuse, I feel too, and what he needed to hear from my mother and what my mother needed to hear from him that they weren't getting. I was counseling my parents at probably 9 years old, counseling them. Well, Dad, if you would try to be a little bit more with Mom, we're not mad at you, da-da-da-da. But I think that one of the things is that we never knew what to believe from his childhood because we didn't really know it. But I knew something was pretty damaged there, way before the Army, I'm sure. And then the Army kind of stuck it in too.
Yeah, on the humorous side, thinking about your brother, and you as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and picturing you then and how he picked on you and called you names and everything. It kind of, for some reason, I thought about Leave It to Beaver, and Eddie Haskell, how he picked on the beaver all the time?
Oh my God.
No
Louise.
respect, so that just
No, my mom used to call him Eddie Haskell because he was such a, can you say this in terms, he's a bullshitter. He knew how to really, he'd be like, how are you tonight, Mrs., and that's how he would be. And then when he wasn't there, he was shoving me in a toilet, it was like, wow. Yeah, wow. Yes, Beth?
I just want to say it was really amazing, this man that was so difficult, and then he had like shining moments when he was like your champion, when you wanted to act and you had this thing about dark shadows, and he like got that about you, and I mean that was amazing because that whole chapter, you know, like your life could have gone a really different way if you didn't find like this acting arena that it
Right.
helped open that door for you so early.
What Beth is referring to is a chapter that says, was there anything good about my father? And there actually was, you know, that I thought of this driving over here tonight, and I think could maybe benefit all of us, I think that little boy was constantly looking for the good. And we talk about that a lot here. But I think my brother was always looking for what was not happening. And he always found it. He wanted my father's love, and then he didn't get it because he would go to me, you know. And I would even can you imagine, you know, he would go, he's the only one I love. And then he would say, he's my only child. He's my real child, you know. And it's like, whatever. But what it was is that I would go to him and say, love Danny. Danny needs your love. Because I didn't really care about, I just wanted to get away from that man. So it's an interesting, I think one of the things that always comes up for me is, and I know it's in the book, do we come here ready and tooled up to do this, what this book is? And then we all, you know, sign up for it or something? We come and we're able, because I can't imagine young, like when I'm reading this, someone so young, I think of Beckham, you know, little Beckham, and I'm thinking, that's who I was his age when I started developing how to run a household. That has to be this incredible power that we call God, or we call anything that is there to assist us. That's just my take on it, you know? Anyone else? I've decided with this group, I wanted to also bring up, we were talking about it on the show, and I wanted to read a little bit from the Behind the Mask, Hypersensitivity and the Other Magical Powers, which was when I was Spider-Man for 10 years. So it's a lot to read, so I think I'm just going to actually talk from it. What made the Spider-Man that I did for 10 years, by the way, with Marvel Comics, why there is a power that is always conspiring for us is that I was Spider-Man for 10 years, and as an actor, I just wanted a gig. So when I went to the audition, they wanted me for Captain America. And I went, so boring. I'm going to hold a shield and then, you know, sign up, you know. And then I auditioned, and they said, that doesn't feel like you. And then they said, you want to try this on? That was Spidey. A one-piece, zip up the back, leave nothing to imagination. And I remember I jumped up on that table of the producer, and I was like, you know, web slinging. And he said, wow, this guy is Spider-Man. So one of the programs that we were talking about, Tracy, yesterday on your show was that, which made me want to switch over to that, is that they had a program that was a comic book talking about Peter Parker. Before he's Peter Parker, he's just like every other kid, right? And that he was molested by an older child. Now, we were talking yesterday, is why I bring it up, how daring that was in 1984 to present with thousands of children, and sometimes with their parents and teachers, for me, the web slinger, to get up on a stage in this suit and their big hero, and to say, when I was your age, before I was Peter Parker, I was molested by an older boy. And he also dealt with, you know, verbal abuse and actual abuse. But that's the thing I would go to do, and it was amazing. You could hear a pin drop in that. And he went on and say, but I just want you to know that you're safe, And if I'm a superhero, you're a superhero. And I remember going through this whole thing. And when I would go to New Mexico, they used to have to get more social workers because these kids were, disclosing in droves. I would go to states and go to their different states and go to the door. I'm ready for my appearance, and they're going, "You're not coming near here," because it started to get out that there was this Spidey, and these kids were disclosing because they trusted this superhero so much. So I remember, and I was 30, by the way, when I got the job, and 40 when I retired. One piece did I mention? Nothing left for the imagination. But at 40, I decided maybe it's time to give it up. So one thing I have to say about the little kids is the little kids go beyond anything. There's their Spider-Man, and he can do no wrong, so they really listen to it. So one day I had my face off, and it was hanging over here, and I just was sitting there, and a little kid ran in, and I was like, "Oh no, hey, how's it going?" He goes, "Okay, Spidey." He's like, "Let me let you know. I am really sorry for what happened to you, but you turned out really good." And I just thought, wow. So the social worker came in to me, and afterwards, and she said, "I just wanted to let you know it must feel very comforting to be able to disclose your abuse in the comfort of a superhero mask." I was like, "What is she talking about? Did I tell you anything? I'm not telling." And she said, "Oh, the only reason I know is saying anything to you is because it is so apparent by your heart that you can see through the costume that you're talking from firsthand experience." And I went, "Oh my God, where has the time went? See ya." And that was a big change in my life because I had to look at things that I did not consider, climbing in bed with your father and appeasing him and doing anything, "Oh, babe," to calm him down. I didn't know that a part of that was abuse. It took me years to even say, with everything you read, for me to even say, "Well, I handled it pretty well. I really wasn't like abused. You should see other people. You should see other people, what they went through." And then I don't know how it all turned around. Rita says it to me a lot. Because I go, "Well, there's people that go through," and she goes, "Patrick, it's okay. You were abused. You cannot say you weren't abused." And I say, "Well, what's a little toilet here and there?" I mean, because you're still trying to go, "No, that can't be," until you finally say, "Yes, it is." And you can process it and work with it and find your gifts and say, "Oh," so I say that to myself all the time. "I'm really proud of you, but I'm really sorry you ever had to go through any of that. No one should have to go through that." So I got the gift from Spider-Man and then eventually, Tracy and we were talking on our show yesterday that, for Marvel to do that in 1984, I give some kudos to them. Now, it wasn't easy because a lot of people complained that I was stirring up trouble. Spidey was stirring up trouble. And I kind of get what they were saying. But so in a way, it's interesting how our gifts come to us in our highest good, right? So the lights are really bright, but I see some stunned look. No, I didn't get it. Anyone else? Who has actually read the book, most of it? Yes. What's that? No. I decided not to read the whole 10 pages or 8 pages, but to summarize the Spider-Man, because it was a big part of my life. The other part that I just wanted to throw out today that I said before too, and then we can have a few more questions, and then being here tonight is interesting because I feel calmer. I feel like I understand that the book is not easy to read, really. But I do also understand, someone said, well, who's your audience for this book? Most everyone breathing. Because this is only the microcosm of the macrocosm of what people go through in their lives. You don't have to have these incredible, frightening experiences to still feel what this little man felt like. And Little Man, for those of you who haven't read it yet, Little Man is the name my mother gave me. And I took it as a badge of courage. So when she would go, that's my little man, that's my little man, I thought, that's who I am. That's my identity now. I'm the man of the house now. I'll make sure everybody's safe. Nobody, and I'll do whatever it takes. I remember asking in a workshop that I asked that little, when I do my inner dialogue with myself, and I said, climbing in bed with your father, if you knew what you knew now, would you still do that? And first I asked, what did it feel like to climb in bed with the smell of alcohol and the beard on your face and all of that confusion? And he said it was very scary, but anytime we would hear, Katie, that was my cue. I had to go in, and because she would say, go appease your father, go appease your father. So that would be my cue, and I took almost like an identity. Look at my body going up like this. It's almost like a proud, watch what I can do. I can calm the monster down. But I was only 7. So when I asked that part of me, I said, would you do it again? And he said, absolutely. Yes, I would do it again. He would do anything to protect his mother. Anything. And I don't say that with, isn't that great? That's where some of the getting to know your mother wasn't perfect came. And when I was like, is there a reason why you were asking me to go in the bedroom to appease him? It felt very normal when it was happening. But later on, you're dealing with confused and curious. And so I'm really proud of that person who was able to balance that kind of stuff. Yes? A few more questions, comments? Marion? One thing before she gets that, I am intending for this book. I just am writing a workbook that goes with it because I just did a workshop at the Sacred Journey based on freeing Moses, the one where he puts the baby in the water and pulls him out of the dumpster and all of that. Just little things like that. But each chapter has really a workbook and a workshop in it. Gems that you can use as a work that you can take in your life now. So this is my next thing, to kind of like go in there and find the gems and fish them out and bring them out so that other people can gain it. Marianne?
So I'm one of those people who would not have read this book if it wasn't that somebody I cared about wrote it.
Right.
And what I'm getting tonight is how important that book is for me to have read. Not only because of what I already shared with you.
Right, thank you for that, by the way.
But because it happens. It didn't happen in my life. It didn't happen in Glenn's life. We had a conversation about this the other day. Like, we thought we had normal childhoods, but we don't actually think that what we had was normal. And it wasn't until to college that I learned that people didn't have childhoods. Everybody didn't have a happy childhood. I mean, I grew up on a farm, my parents were there. I mean, it was really kind of a movie set that I grew up on. But it's important for me to know. And also, what I realized tonight is, maybe I attract people like myself, so I don't know about too many others like this, or maybe they're like you were, and they don't share about it. And I think there's probably a lot more of that than I ever thought about before, which gives me an opportunity to have just greater understanding, empathy, patience, a lot of things. So I have two more things. One is, if you haven't talked about this already, because I'm sorry we were late,
That's fine.
I'd like to encourage you to do an audiobook, because listening to you read tonight, yeah, it would be very powerful and a very good companion to what you're talking about providing. And even a way to introduce what you're providing. And also, I wanted to share with everybody here what just a minute, I have to get into my phone. What I wrote to you right after I finished the book.
Oh, please.
Because it was the most, honest thing I could say. It's been a week or so since I've finished reading it. And I just want to share it because I'm here with people I love. So I wrote this. Went to my computer right after I finished the book. I loved your book, Patrick. So honest, authentic, revealing, compelling, heart-opening / breaking, and overflowing with familial love alongside terror and distress. As one of your longtime congregants and friends, your book was like a thread that bound together many loose ends of knowing and understanding you. As you said somewhere in your book, we can never completely understand someone else because we are not that person. However, I am grateful for the insights you have given me into what contributed to who you are today. It is a great responsibility to write a book that reveals one's difficult path for the benefit of others. I honor your choice to do so and applaud the result.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, the different things that people, what they gather from it too. And by the way, then she sent another one saying, and you're right, it would make a good movie. Yes, because there's a lot of visual in it, right? There's a lot of, yeah, thank you. And never be afraid to let people know how it's affecting you, not just a book, but just in life. Like that really touched me in this way or that, because I think people really need to hear it, not from an ego place, but from an understanding. Yes.
First of all, thanks for letting me be one of the first readers. As I expressed to you before, it was a difficult book to proofread because I know you, and it was hard for me to separate. We do have some things in common, so it was hard for me to separate from you. I'm just looking at the language. I said to you after I finished that I wasn't going to read it again because it was difficult for me. And now I'm thinking, why is that so difficult for me? What did it touch in me that I need to explore? I did want to ask a specific question. If you were specifically treated or had therapy for PTSD.
For me?
Yeah.
No, but I probably should have. So, tapping. Yeah. So the question was, did I ever get treatment for PTSD? Since I pretty much, yeah. When I went to my first therapist much later than that, I did not get it, but I also understood it when I moved out and I realized that I still needed grenades thrown at me. And I realized that that was not healthy. So I did some I've always been that way though. I have to really be honest. I was a 6-year-old, hiding a journal. They called them diaries. And I remember writing those, they would be so interesting to read now, wouldn't they? Or they'd be terribly depressing. But yeah, so I probably could have used some help. My brother could have used some help. In those days, there was not a lot. I remember going to the Veterans hospital, and I had really, really bad nervous stomach. I went, really? But my stomach was a mess, and the doctors were like, what's going on? And then they said, is anything, you seem very nervous about things. And I was in his world, so I really couldn't say it was my dad, but they kind of knew. And I remember when my mom was going to leave my father, the 100th time she was going to get out, but didn't. I remember that the veteran psychiatrist sitting down and saying, I'd like to talk to you and your brother, and do you feel responsible for your parents wanting to separate? And I said, my brother was like, no, I don't want my dad to leave. I don't want my, and I said, no. I said, I didn't marry him. I was only 9 years old. I didn't marry him. I kept thinking, that's her thing. Of course I don't feel bad that they're doing it. So I think that I did a lot of self stuff, but my brother did not. My mother did not. They weren't raised in that time, right? Now we're raised in a time where we can tell people sometimes how we feel. Yes, Emma. Thank you, Sue. And thank you for your love all through that process.
You raised something that I was curious while I was reading the book, and I was very curious about your brother. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I went in that direction is because I know you, and I know how you are today, and I've known parts of your stories.
Through classes and stuff that we've done with
Right.
inner child work.
Exactly. Yeah. So I kind of know how you were able to get out of it, but your brother at one time when he was little was really a very, I don't see him as an Eddie Haskell at that time because he was great in sports. He was actually good in school. At one point, he was really the bright star. You said that he was the favorite of your mom, really, but that you did something else for your mom that also helped her. But your brother was this up-and-coming star.
Yeah.
And then something happened. I don't know. I'm curious. And I don't know very much about your brother and how did he deal with it differently? He didn't talk about it. He kept it inside.
Right.
While you did the other way, you found ways to get it out of your system, so to speak.
Because I was the entertainer. I was the one that could entertain my mother and entertain the family. I'm going to give a nutshell of my brother. If you had known me, that's why it's so shocking. If you had known my mother, you would have never had known that I was the one. But he was. And I said in the book, they used to say at her work, because she had pictures of his baseball games and everything that he did, and they would say, do you have another son? And that was me. So he really did have star status, but I have a feeling that underneath all that star status, that there was some things brewing mentally as well for him. Because when he was very young, they used to say to my mom, there's something not right with your boy. He talks very strange things down in the basement. We hear that. And so my mom never really, and who does? Oh, he's just being a boy, and then she didn't speak to her family for forever, because if you go against anybody in the family. And I think that, and what happened was, he probably did have all of the stuff that he kept quiet during all of the rage and everything. But my brother was also diagnosed with bipolar, and so he went through his own thing. But up until high school, president of the his class, he was straight A's, everything. He was the perfect kid, varsity. The only thing he couldn't play was football because he was too small. And so, yeah, I'm not sure that something turned him. I'm positive there might have been something there the entire time, because that needed to be dealt with. But when he went to the Marines at 18, he never came back really the same when he came back from Vietnam. And he went through all of that stuff. And he adored my father because he wanted a father so badly. And my father just, except for the time in the bathroom, my brother and dad, even the time of the bathroom scene, where they both ganged up on me when my mother was gone, even then, I remember sitting in my bedroom, I wrote it, I said, he's finally getting Dad to be on his side for once, at my expense. But I went, wow. I wonder if I should have had sainthood. No. Oh, I went back but so my brother, I think, did not develop something. I think he always had a lot going on. And, to be honest, here's a story that's not in the book that I don't mind sharing with, it's live streaming, so the whole world. When the night that my brother was hit by the car in San Francisco, he ended up in the room at the Veterans Hospital in the mental ward on that 72-hour, whatever, you can't leave. My father was here, and he was there. And he called my mom, and he said, I will never end up like him. And 8 hours later, he was gone. He got out of his, thing. But can you imagine the irony of this whole stories, and they end up in the same mental institute. One is here and one is here. Wow. Yeah. So, any last moment questions? How's everybody feeling? Oh, there we go, Jeanette.
And I haven't yet read the book, shame on me, but I will start immediately. I just wanna thank you, Patrick. I mean, that's huge what you went through, and my heart is melting in deep compassion. And thank you for having the courage to get through your childhood. And now sitting here and sharing with us your story. And yeah, I feel you came in with a lot of love and light already. Otherwise, you couldn't have come through. Right. So I really want to admire that, and I love you even more.
Oh, thank you. And before we close, I do want to ask something. I hardly ever ask it this way, and that's okay. I hardly ever ask it like I do this all the time. When I'm in book signings, I hardly ever. Yeah. Anyway, is there anybody? And you don't have to feel bad about it or anything about it. One of the biggest fears of writing this book was, like I'm thinking right now, my cousin Jimmy Feren. I can't believe he won't read this at some point, and it's very telltale of our family, right? They don't know any of that. But is there anybody that thinks that I should not have written something that was so, not for me, but that exposed secrets of my family? I'm just curious, because I'm sure somebody who wrote a very kind of a book like this said, and I just love it when people say, you're probably going to have to pay some consequences for that. I'm thinking, oh, gee whiz, can't wait to get that out. You know, ooh, so I'm talking about, so that was it. And the other one, the one question I have is there, do you blame my mother? Is there something inside of you, anybody that goes, she's not a good woman, or, you know, what, or is there an understand, oh, yeah, that's good, she's going, I think, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Is this, the whole family is touched by mental illness, just like other forms of mental illness like addiction, and the whole family learns a way of coping with it. And so your mother was coping with it her way, and teaching you boys how to cope with it in a way that kept you alive. And I can't imagine being her, you know. Yeah, I wouldn't say I blame her. She was sick also as a result of the behavior she experienced.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, yeah. Okay, well, I'll close this after her. Yeah.
I think we have to kind of put it in the time period that it was when it was happening, right?
Right.
50s, 60s, 50s.
60s.
And she's a Catholic, right?
Right.
No divorce. You don't think about divorces. And I believe that she was really within that frame. She was doing the best she could at the time.
Right.
That is what she knew to do, right? I mean, leaving was never probably in her mind. And did she work? Yeah, she did. She went to work, yeah. So,
Yeah, just a closer on my mom. One more closer on her too. As she got older, she did say many times, I really take responsibility. Wait, this is the best part though. Do you think that my actions, our actions in our family, she goes, I have to take responsibility for Danny, for that happening to him. I'm thinking, girl, what about over here? I mean, over here, Mom. And she's, but you know why? Because I handled it so beautifully, and I handled it like a husband, that she was taking care of him more as her child. So there's a reason why it's called the little man. So she had a little man, and my brother was a boy. And it was really interesting. So thank you for that question, so it's stimulating. Holly. It's good to see you, girl.
It's so good to see you. Thank you so much. And my mom read part of your book on the way, so we were so glad that we had heard part of your book. But, well, your mom had extreme confidence in you as the little man, so she felt she had done right by you because you turned out so great. But in the movie, I believe it's the little kid who comes up to Spider-Man who says, you turned out great, who should open the movie. But the next part I was gonna say is, as Eckhart Tolle says, to forgive your mom and everyone in this universe. If you had the same experiences and you had the same awareness as your mother, you would be in the same situation, you would make the same choices, and that's the way we forgive everyone.
Oh, thank you. So I'm gonna close this out right now. I just, first of all, thank you for supporting, not just me, but supporting this message. This message is so important to me, as you well know. So, yes, thank you. So I'm standing because I just want to be this incredible open conduit for this thing called life to speak through me and as me. I am filled with such gratitude Gratitude for many, many reasons, but gratitude that this incredible thing that we call by many names, the universe, God, source, as I always say, it doesn't matter what we call it, because it is everything seen and unseen. And I take a moment right here to honor each and every one of us here in this room, online, and on this entire planet as we go through what seems to be such chaos at times. To honor that incredible, pure, loving energy that permeates and lives and breathes as each and every one of us. And I am so grateful for that inner child, that little girl, that little boy, that incredible energy that knows nothing besides itself, which is good. So we have come here tonight to remember who and what we are in every moment. And I bathe in this thing called forgiveness, knowing that each and every one of us, in every moment from this one to the next, is doing exactly what is coming up to be known, to be felt, and to be experienced, and to be activated. I know that forgiveness is the key, not because of anything wrong, but forgiveness is the freedom to be and have and do everything that we are. So thank you so much for this opportunity to open up a door, And so with that, I just let that go, and remember, I will see you at the movies. And so it is. Namaste. Mahalo. Mahalo. Yeah.
Sign books if you want. We're going to put a little table here.
You're not on, darling.